This is by far my favorite fight on this card. Flyweight never die. We have the long-awaited debut of one Manel Kape, and this is a guy that's representing Angola as well as Portugal. And holy smokes, did he have himself a 2019. Started it off. He had a win over Seichiro Ito, and then he had a big finish win over Takeya Mitsugaki, and then he had a big finish win in the rematch against Kai Asakura that only had the one loss to that point. And again, you go back and you look at Manel Kape's record, and you might say, oh, well, it was so-so when he came over with Rizin. He beat Ersin Yamamoto. Then he had the win over Ian McCall. That was a really weird one. Loses to Kyoji Horiguchi. Loses split decision to Kai Asakura. Beats Yusaku Nakamura. And then he loses to Oka Sasaki in a decision. Ray Longo was in the corner. Harry Connick Jr. likes the freaking lasagna. But again, 2019, Rizin 15, 18, and 20. All second round finishes. And if you look at a guy like Manel Kape, he wears wrestling shoes and socks. That could be a weird transition. And he's used to fighting in a ring. That's another weird transition. I have a book in front of me by Lee Montville, Sting Like a Bee. Manel Kape has some of the best footwork, best boxing footwork that I've seen in MMA in a while. Now, we talked about Mahmoud Muradov here recently when he fought Andrew Sanchez, the fact that he has a great L-step. He's a really good boxer. Didn't know how good of a defensive wrestler he would be. Didn't know he'd try and take Andrew Sanchez down and actually take him down. But in this fight, if you go back and watch Manel Kape, the one takeaway that I have, one huge takeaway, his head movement's great. He'll stunt on his opponents, which is kind of cool to see. Against Mitsugaki, he did the old bobbing for apples, which I always love. But he moves his feet, but he's very economical when he moves his feet. You know, we talk about fighters where, you know, they're always moving moving away from the power hand. But if you watch Manel Kape, he'll start southpaw, and then he'll move orthodox. But the best thing that he does when he switches stances, when he's fighting southpaw, I've found that one of his best strikes is his right hook, so his lead hand. But when he switches and fights orthodox, well, his best strike's his left hook. And if you want to see a great finish, it's the footwork that he has against Takeya Mitsugaki, where he spins and then he throws a right out there and knocks Mitsugaki flat on his back. It's amazing. Go check that out. But again, his footwork is amazing. I can't oversell it. Opposite him, Alexandre Pantoja, Matt. This is a guy that we've known for a very long time. He came in off The Ultimate Fighter season 24 and kind of like a buzzsaw through the division. And I know he's lost fights along the way. Dustin Ortiz has beat him. Devson Figueiredo's beaten him. Askar Askarov. And if you want to be cheap, well, he's 1-2 in his last 3 fights. But Alexandre Pantoja is a great fighter.
He is a tough fighter for anyone to deal with, especially a flyweight, because he just brings a lot of intangibles we don't really see at such a lightweight class. He has, I would argue, he has the punching power of John Lineker. He's got really good ground game, too, and that's something that he doesn't get the credit for. If you just look at that Askar Askarov fight, yeah, he gets, and I won't really even say outstruck, because I think on the feet, Pantoja did a great job. He was landing some big power shots, but Askarov would take him down, and he was just so good on the ground, and this is, Askar Askarov doesn't really get enough credit. You're really high on him, but you're about the only person who is, it seems. He was just able to neutralize a lot of the weapons that Pantoja has. He's good enough on the ground defensively where the jiu-jitsu Pantoja, he was never really able to get himself going, especially off of his back. So Askar was able to control him from the top position. So you get out-grappled by Askar Askarov. No real issue there. That's going to happen to a lot of guys. The fight against Devson Figueiredo is one of the greatest flyweight fights of all time. It's such a phenomenal fight because you had Devson Figueiredo, before he was champ, of course, just running through everybody. And a lot of people thought this fight would just kind of be more of the same from both guys. Pantoja is game, and that's something that it's hard to really put a number to associate gameness, but Pantoja, you're always going to get the best version of him no matter what. And this is what I love about the matchmaking. I have a lot of questions about Manel Kape coming into the UFC.
That's fair.
It really is. He fought in a ring. He had shoes on in his other fights. But even level of competition, like you bring up, he looked really good knocking out Takeya Mizugaki. In 2019, if Alexandre Pantoja fought Takeya Mizugaki in 2019, I'm sure the result would probably be very similar. He'd also finish him in a probably spectacular way. I know what I'm going to get from Pantoja, though. He's going to have phenomenal punching power, and honestly, I would say he's the second most powerful athlete in the division, right behind the champ in Figueiredo, and if you go back and watch their fights, it really proves that. He cracks Figueiredo with some absolute bombs. Figueiredo, one of the better chins we've really seen, and of course, he's also got ungodly power. What he was able to do, and this is really Pantoja's claim to fame, he not only beat Brandon Moreno in the UFC, he was also submitted him on The Ultimate Fighter, and that was a weird fight, because on The Ultimate Fighter, it was that season where they brought in a bunch of those regional champs from all over. Pantoja, he gets the win, but you don't really know what to expect out of either guy for the future of the UFC career. Turns out, they're both very, very good at fighting, and they do get matched up again, and it was after the main event that Moreno had with Sergio Pettis, so really, not to say Brandon Moreno was at the peak of his power, because I would argue right now is probably as good as Brandon Moreno's ever been.
Yeah, he was at the bottom of his power. That was the see you later, Brandon. You got to go fight on the regional scene, get one win, and then shock the world all the way up to the title.
But Pantoja beat the brakes off Brandon Moreno in that fight, and it wasn't competitive at all. So it is wild to think of that, okay, I know he got cut, and we've seen a new version of Brandon Moreno, but that fight wasn't that long ago, and you look at what Pantoja was able to do in that fight, and just really the complete performance he was able to put on against Brandon Moreno, it gives me a lot of confidence in this fight. Does Manel Kape have the power to knock out Pantoja? Of course he does. I won't disrespect him like that. Will he get the opportunities to knock out Pantoja? He will, because Pantoja, for as good of a striker as he is, he will get hit. Now, it's a benefit because it will kind of gloat his opponent to stay in that pocket for maybe that one extra punch, and that's when they can ultimately get caught themselves. This fight is such a fan-friendly fight, though, that, listen, you might be able to kind of figure out who Craig and I are siding with already, but I'm as excited for this fight, like you had said, as I am for any other one in the card. The UFC debut of Manel Kape, it's not on Michael Chandler's level for me, but it's as close as you can possibly get.
I mean, it's right there for me. We considered this as a possible fight of the night. Let's let the cat out of the bag. We're halfway through this card. We always pick two to make it fun, so we can kind of have one for each guy, but really when two heads are better than one and we connect, this is probably the one on this card. And again, I was looking forward to this fight when, Manel Kape was supposed to take on Rogerio Bontorin. Well, unfortunately, Bontorin shattered his ankle.
Can we both agree this is a much better matchup?
Yeah, it is. And then these guys were supposed to fight in December. It fell out, so Manel Kape weighs in as an alternate for Brandon Moreno, Davison Figueiredo. That's how much stock the UFC has in this guy. That's why we bring out the Chandler comparison, because both guys were champions outside. Manel Kape's been finished. Michael Chandler had been finished. They both weighed in as alternates for title fights in the UFC. The UFC holds these guys, Chandler and Kape, in very high regard. The shoe thing's weird, and the ring thing's kind of weird because, Fedor fought in a ring.
And he didn't do that good in a cage.
Then when he came over to a cage, it didn't go all that well. Now, was it because, it was a circular cage and not an octagon? I don't know, but they're just weird things. For Manel Kape, again, I love the stance switches. I don't like the certain periods of inactivity where I think Pantoja can take over. I love the power of Manel Kape. Again, the right hook's great, but when he's fighting from orthodox, the left hook's great. His combinations are good. I'd like to see a little bit more in terms of kicks. He will throw a body kick. You kind of worry about that with a guy like Pantoja because Pantoja, again, both of these guys are very, very powerful. Who has a better ground game? Alexandre Pantoja has a better ground game out of these two. Maybe Manel Kape surprises me, but listen, I love this fight, and I wish neither guy could lose, but unfortunately, it's a fight. Maybe it ends up a draw, but unfortunately, you're probably going to get a winner. You're probably going to get a loser. Again, for Manel Kape, I can't, state it enough. Ulka Sasaki fought in the UFC. Mixed results.
He wasn't great, though.
Pantoja beat him, so if it's MMA math, then automatically you know the winner. Kai Asakura, who is, again, a huge talent. He has that win over Horiguchi, fluke or not, it's a win. And then the loss to Horiguchi. But he made it to the third round against Horiguchi.
You're going to get finished against Horiguchi.
That's going to happen. Listen, we were talking before we came on air. Who would I want to see Kyoji Horiguchi fight? Well, he beat Darren Caldwell twice. Sergio Pettis, he's probably going to beat.
Brandon Moreno's the number one fight, personally.
Patchy Mix, he's probably going to meet. I'd even go as far as Figueiredo or Cejudo or maybe a Dillashaw. Like, I really think Horiguchi, at the height of his powers, when he's full ACL, I think he could be great. I look at this fight, though, the Tapology votes, Matt. We always talk about them. What are the fans thinking? Well, 1,175 votes so far, 60% Pantoja, 40% Kape. The 60% that are going Pantoja, 61% by decision. The 40% going with Manel Kape, 61% have him to win by knockout. So the fans on Tapology are saying if Kape wins, more than likely knockout. If Pantoja wins, more than likely he wins by decision. If we have a look at the odds, Pantoja opened a -130 favorite, now just edged a little bit, -140. So 10-point difference. Matt sneezes, watch out. Manel Kape open +110, now at a +115. So the odds ever so slightly moving the way of Alexandre Pantoja. I love this fight, Matt. What are the final thoughts?
I love this fight too. Okay, I'm going to side with the fans, but also against them at the same time. I like Pantoja in this fight. I like him by finish as well, but here's the thing. I just think the way this fight's going to be fought is there's going to be a very high likelihood for a finish out of both guys. Manel Kape can get hit, and same thing for Pantoja. Both guys who are two of the more powerful guys who you're going to see at flyweight. I like Pantoja in this fight. I think he will be able to land one big shot. And the thing I like about Pantoja too, if Manel Kape lands a big shot and drops Pantoja, I doubt he just rushes to the ground and try to finish him. If Pantoja drops Manel Kape, he's going to be able to get on top of him, and he won't have to just rush for that ground and pound finish. He can kind of wait on top, select his shots a little bit better, and then maybe work for submission if it does end up to the mat. So although this fight is probably the best matched up fight on the whole entire card, I'm going to side with Pantoja ever so slightly.
I'm in the same camp. I'm just going to ever so slightly side with Alexandre Pantoja. If Manel Kape went out there, knocked him out in the first round, knocked him out in the second round, had the staying power in the third round to knock him out, I would not be surprised whatsoever. This, to me, pop and popcorn fight. I'm not putting anything on it. I'm going to sit back and enjoy it. You have two very high-level guys at flyweight. This should be fireworks. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going Pantoja. You're going Pantoja. But overall, a great fight on a great card. And we have some awesome fights coming up. Carlos Diego Ferreira taking on Beneil Dariush. You have Marion Renault taking on Macy Chasson. You've got a really great one in the co-main event, Sandhagen Edgar. And in our main event, Alistair Overeem taking on Drago, Alexander Volkov. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt. As we always say, let's get into it.